boring. It was very undynamic, no life at all. Okay, so this is my first impressions of my new speakers, the Sonus Faber Stradivari. Alison will put in the link for the unboxing video in the description box. Just quickly, the speakers are made by Sonus Faber in Italy, handmade. The finish is absolutely stunning. This is one of those speakers where you physically have to see it. It doesn't convey how sensuous and how beautiful the speakers are unless you see it in person. When I first saw the pictures, I wasn't sure I liked the look of the speakers. I had owned 2 pairs of the original Stradivari, and I loved how they look. So when I saw pictures of these, I wasn't present when they introduced these speakers. I thought, oh my goodness, maybe the design team has finally made a misstep in terms of the aesthetics. I really didn't. I didn't like them, let's put it this way, in terms of the aesthetics. But I figured, let's try a pair and see what happens. I'm glad I did. I ordered them early enough to get the, I think there are 70 pairs or 50 pairs, I can't remember how many pairs, of the limited edition 40th anniversary speakers, and I got one of the pairs. I can't remember exactly how many pairs, but anyway, I was lucky enough to get a pair. They are functionally the same. It's just that the limited edition ones, on the side of the speaker, it says limited edition, and the grill cloth says 40th anniversary. Alison can probably throw in some pictures to show you. Anyway, the speakers are $50,000 US, so they're not cheap. But interestingly enough, the previous generation, if I'm not wrong, was $40,000 US, and that was over 20 years ago. So it hasn't gone up dramatically, and in fact, if you factor in inflation, it's actually cheaper now. Anyway, so let's get into first impressions. We unboxed them, put it into one of our big rooms, had the Accuphase E5000 connected to it. The Accuphase is an integrated amplifier. I was also breaking the Accuphase in at the same time. So this came in at the same time, so we might as well just break them in. I used a streamer and some MIT cables that I had lying around, connect everything up, and took a quick listen, and yeah, it was blah, boring. It was very undynamic, no life at all. Now, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit. Wasn't as bad as that, but it was definitely not what I was expecting. And here's why. When the Amati G5 was first introduced and we got them in, and again, Alison can put the link in the description box, right off the bat, they sounded very, very good, and they continued to sound amazing as they broke in. In fact, truth be told, I don't think that the break-in made that much of a difference. Probably made it better, but I don't recall going from good to great. It was like already very good, and it just made it better over time. So my first impressions of these right off the bat was not encouraging. Funny thing also is that the Amati G5 uses the same mid-range driver and tweeters from what I know, and the woofers are different. The Stradivarius uses 10-inch woofers, and maybe there's something else different besides the fact that it's the size is bigger. I know they're using the same kind of motor technology, but maybe it's even more than that. So anyway, I wasn't too concerned because the design team has been hitting it out of the park for 15 years or longer. Every successive generation that they've introduced has made the speakers more neutral and still retain the essence of Sonus Faber, which is slightly sweeter, still extremely musical, sweet, soft top end with extended airiness. They just got better and more dynamic and with more bass and being able to play a much wider variety of music as opposed to the early versions of the Sonus Faber. So I wasn't too concerned. It was just first impressions, not that great. So anyway, New Year's Day, yes, New Year's Day, I woke up early as usual, got into the store, and I thought, okay, I'm going to move the speakers into this room and set them up and see what they sound, because by now they would have about 230 some odd hours, should be ready. So move them in here. The Accuphase was already in this room, the Accuphase E5000 integrated amp. For those of you who haven't seen the video review, Allison can again put in the link in the description box. And it was already here, so I thought, okay, let's hook it up to the Accuphase and see what happens. I was using the Lumen P1 as a streamer. The digital output, USB fed the MSB discrete DAC with the Premier power supply, so the full-size power supply, and then analog output into the Accuphase in balance. Cables are a mix of AudioQuest and Nordos. So right off the bat, it sounded much better. It was not plodding, undynamic, slow, sweet to a fault. I mean, originally it sounded sweet to a fault. It sounded like the top was completely rolled off, lacking any sparkle. So completely different. It was, I don't know how to describe it. It's almost as if somehow we made a mistake when we first connected the speakers to break in, and we had forgotten to connect those jumpers, you know, the jumpers that connect between the binding posts of the high frequencies and the low frequencies. Yeah, it's just like that. Imagine if you didn't connect that and all you had was just the bass. It sounded like that, except we did have the jumpers hooked up. So now it's a lot better. I was really enjoying it, playing all kinds of tunes, having a lot of fun. The one thing I was noticing, though, is that it still wasn't as dynamic as I was hoping. Now, originally I had the speakers set up where we normally have the Wilson setup, the Accuphase setup. Almost every speaker that's in this room, we know roughly where they sound great in this room, and so we typically default to that setting and to that location. So it wasn't all that dynamic. Then I thought, let me try something more powerful. Maybe the Accuphase just doesn't have quite the kind of power that these speakers like. So then I hooked up the Macintosh C2702 preamplifier to the Macintosh MC462. Those products are in this room, so it was easy for me to just connect it. And within seconds, sat back and listened to the same cuts again. And wow, it woke me up. I was stunned at the big difference between what the Accuphase was doing and what the Macintosh was doing. Everything came to life, much more dynamic. Sweetness was still there. The mid-range and the high frequencies now, well, even before, always had that beautiful, very relaxed, sweet sound. And now you've got urgency as well. You've got transient response. You got leading edges of the instruments that seem to be slightly missing with the Accuphase. And then suddenly it hit me, you know, Sonus Faber has been part of the Macintosh group for many years now. And of course, Sonus Faber uses Macintosh as a large part of their testing protocol. So maybe that's why there's this special synergy between the two of them. In any case, whatever it was, there was a lot more life, a lot more dynamic swings. I was just really enjoying the music a lot more. I decided to let the system settle a little bit more. It was January 1st after all. I had to go home, take the family out for dim sum. So I left after spending about 5 or 6 hours playing with the system. January 2nd, the store is officially reopened. The system continues to play. I would periodically check in from time to time. That was yesterday. And then today is January the 3rd. So again, this morning I decided, okay, time for some serious tuning. I came in very early, started to listen again a little bit just to see if anything had changed. Not significantly, not materially so. Then I started moving the speakers back and forth using what is termed the Sumiko, or master setup, a speaker setup protocol. I can't remember exactly what they call it, but basically there's a very specific protocol. If you Google that, you will see some description of what back then the distributor of Sonus Faber was called Sumiko, would go around training dealers. And so I did that protocol, spent about an hour and a half doing it, maybe 2 hours actually. And when I was finished, I listened again. And yeah, a big transformation. Everything that was great before, even better now. Something about the Sonus Faber, the Stradivarius in particular, really responds to this setup protocol. The speakers are now approximately 1.5 feet further away from the front wall. The width is roughly the same. I've got a little bit more toe in now. The rake angle, I haven't finished yet. I haven't had time, but the rake angle is a little bit less than what I previously had. The transformation was so significant, I decided to play some fun tracks. As I say, this is just the first impression, so I'm not going to go into all the full details until a follow-up. All of the important things like musicality, the ability to draw you into the music, the fine details in the recording, everything is there in spades. This is a truly stunning speaker, and I say this without any reservation. This is a very, very expensive speaker. It's $50,000 US, so it better do what it's supposed to do, and it does. I have no reservation, again, in saying this, given that I've spent quite a bit of time with them now, and I'm still not finished fine-tuning them. As they stand right now, they are truly a remarkable speaker in any way that I can think of. Given, there are a couple of caveats though. Number one, they like power. As was evident with my using of the Accuphase, the E5000, I mean, that's not a low-powered integrated amp. That's a very, very good integrated amplifier. But it seems like the Stradivarius needs more. The Stradivari needs more. It needs more oomph. It needs more current. It needs more down-low dig, the ability to just go 0 to 60 very, very quickly. It needs more control. I mean, probably because of the two big 10-inch woofers. And when you provide it, the speakers with that kind of requirement, it just blossoms and sings. Let me give you a couple of music examples. Janelle Monáe, I think that's how you pronounce her name, Make Me Feel. Super punchy, very dynamic, great, wonderful, deep, punchy bass, rock solid imaging. If you haven't heard this before, check it out. It's a really, really cool, interesting cut to play with. As I mentioned before, the sound staging is incredible. So I thought I'd play two cuts, two of my favorite cuts. I don't think I've mentioned these cuts before, but every so often when I want to seriously impress clients, especially the clients who are buying the really, really big systems, and I want to show them how good the system is, I'll play these two cuts. So I'm going to share them with you. Beck, Hard as a Drum. Soundstage is absolutely huge. Again, I'm assuming if your system can do it, you'll hear this. Absolutely huge. The speakers completely disappear. Now, there are ways that you can get your sound staging to be big and impressive, and your speakers to disappear simply by putting your speakers very far from the wall, by sitting very close to them, and so on. I'm not set up that way. The speakers are not set up that way. This room is not that big that I can have the speakers, 10 feet from any wall and so on. It's nothing like that at all. The side of the speakers is maybe a foot from the side wall, and I'm sitting about maybe 9.5, 10 feet from the speakers. Almost like an equilateral triangle. So relatively near field, but not that near. As I say, it's not that big a room. But despite that, the speakers absolutely disappear. And I get not only wall to wall, but way beyond soundstage. Depth, tall image. When Lewis came in this morning, I sat him down to listen to it, and he was... Anybody who knows Lewis, if I said Lewis was awestruck and had no words, says a lot because Lewis, like me, loves to talk. So for Lewis to have no words is quite interesting. The other cut to try, and this one's even more amazing. Dead Can Dance, Song of the Stars. Talk about immersive. You will hear the sound wrap around you. The soundstage will come forward of the speakers. You still have tremendous depth. There will be certain sounds that will go from left to right and back again, and you can track that so well. It is so continuous. The soundstage is literally one continuous field, and everything, all the images are within. It is not only one of the most amazing things I've heard in terms of what a speaker can do, it's also a lot of fun. There are some systems that can do these kinds of things, but they do it almost technically, almost matter of fact. There's no fun. These speakers are a tremendous amount of fun. Now I know, I'm biased. I sell these speakers. Well, I can tell you that although that is probably true, that's not what I thought initially, because, as I say, my initial impressions were not that great. But these speakers so far, at about 250 hours, have truly blossomed and are amazing to me. I don't know, I don't have the words to describe. It's, again, one of those things that you'll have to hear for yourself. And then to finish this part one off, again, as I was listening, I thought to myself, so far I've tried the Accuphase E5000 integrated amp, which is one of the best integrated amps I've heard. I haven't heard everything, but it's one of the best ones I've heard. And then when I switched over to the Macintosh preamp and power amp combination, a lot more money, sounded even better. I wonder what would happen if I used a really, really good amplifier to drive these speakers. And early in this morning, I have the D'Agostino Progression S350 stereo amplifier in this room. So I didn't have to go lug it over and so on. I thought, well, let's connect it up. The preamp, I'll keep the preamp the same, I'll just switch to power amplifier. So the D'Agostino is 350 watts into 8 ohms, 700 watts into 4 ohms, 1,400 watts into 2 ohms. I thought, it's going to be fun. So connected up, everything else stays the same. Played those 3 tracks that I just mentioned, and night and day. When I'm not a person that is given to exaggerations. If you watch my videos over time, you'll notice that I tend to be more tempered and careful with my words, because I think it's important that we try to describe what we hear in a way that makes sense to you. When I say night and day, I mean the sound went from lush and sweet and very dynamic still to a race car. This is what I wrote down. Turned the Sonus Faber into a race car. The speed, the transient response, the clarity, the start and stop just completely transformed. And that was with the amplifier cold. And as the amplifier continued to warm up, it got even better. So my conclusions for part one. The Stradivari is a speaker that seems to demand a lot from your front end. Yes, you can get away with the Accuphase. It sounds like it's terrible. It's not. It's very good. But the better you put in front of it, again, I want to stress, it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be expensive, but the better you put in front of the Strad, the more it shows what it's capable. It's that good. It's that transparent. There are all kinds of speakers out there where you can keep putting stuff, better stuff in front of it, and it hits a certain point and it just doesn't go any further. Not with these. These will reward you when you put in pedigree products. And I say this carefully and cautiously because I don't want it to come across as elitist, but somehow what Sonus Faber has achieved with the Strad is just, they just knocked it out of the park. Anyway, more to come. Parting words. This is definitely not the original Strad. This is far, far, far beyond. Anyway, thanks for watching. As usual, like, subscribe if you did. Like the video, subscribe please. Again, if you like this video, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.